We are back with another episode of Black Girls Vibe. Andrea, how are you doing this week, my friend?
Hey there. I'm doing all right. It's been another busy week but they seem to start off a little slow and then by Wednesday it's like boom, weekend.
Yep.
Here we are.
And here we are getting ready to do it all over again.
Right.
Uh, and let's go ahead and hop into it. I mean, you are at the epicenter of the sports world this weekend, and perhaps the also correspondingly the epicenter for COVID breakouts. Uh,
Well, we'll
with
do so.
your city's hosting of the All-Star game today, this evening.
Yes.
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 And so, as obviously they've kind of condensed, they've gotten rid of some of the activities that would span the weekend. And so, as I understand it, and you may have a better handle on this than I do, but they'll still have the skills challenge, they'll have the 3-point challenge. And I heard just earlier today that the dunk contest will actually be, I think, during halftime of the game.
Yeah, I was trying to
Did you
figure
hear
out
that?
when that was going to happen. But yeah, that
Hmm.
was the latest that I heard too, because I didn't see
Yeah.
it in the lineup for all the pregame. So yeah.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see what it's like with this new format. We started talking about a little bit of this the last time we met up, but I am curious. I know what my take is. I'm curious your take is on what your take is on um, the HBCU angle of this, uh, specifically. Um, the the heightened amplification of HBCUs in the context of this particular All-Star game being held on this particularly unusual set of circumstances. Any
Yeah.
reaction to that from you?
Yeah. I mean, we've talked a little bit about, like you said before, just with really over the past year, but definitely specifically to the NBA, the focus that the HBCUs have received, which, like, we both know how valuable they are as institutions, long-standing reputation that they have. But now that they're becoming more prominent, I guess, to um, the I guess beyond individuals typically attend them, great. My whole thing is just as it relates to the NBA is like, why now? I
Mhm.
do recognize with the All-Star game being in Atlanta, Atlanta has a very strong HBCU community with the Atlanta University Center. So we do have a good number of HBCUs in the city. I just, you know, just given the circumstances of the environment that we're in and how we are being impacted with the pandemic, just the equity across the board and how we're impacted with contracting it. Um, the results of because a lot of us minorities have those underlying health conditions where we can be impacted more. And then on the vaccination side of things, just the equity there, um, you know, still have issues with Star Game being played in Atlanta for reasons I'm sure we'll get a little bit more later. I just find just the timing of it just again like the why now, because there are certain things you could do and focus on and bring attention to the HBCUs outside of this moment, because it's something that again they have a long-standing history. We've seen a lot of prominent individuals and know the success stories that come out of HBCUs. So highlighting them, great to bring them more on the national and international stage. Don't think this was the time to have that focus on HBCUs in the pandemic. But
Yeah,
that's my 2 cents. What's your
yeah.
take?
I mean, I tend to agree. You know, I'm uncomfortable with the notion, the feeling that HBCUs, like the highlight on HBCUs, is a way like to provide cover and justify the decision to move forward
Mm-hmm.
with the All-Star game under these circumstances. I mean, it's an interesting moment where, you know, like these HBCUs are being amplified in this way by the NBA, but like it's also been an opportunity to underscore and amplify the fact that not many HBCU Black players, basketball players, end up in the NBA.
Right.
So, you know, like, and to me, that's more of a, you know, that is the NBA has an opportunity if it really wants to help HBCUs and their athletic programs, then it needs to also explore as a part of that, like why the pipeline is so weak from HBCU basketball programs into the NBA. And unless and until
no, that's a good point. Very good point.
like you start addressing, you know, that piece, it could come across as feeling like window dressing. So I don't know. To me, this brings on a bigger conversation about just how far are members of management and owners of teams and leagues, like how far are they willing to go around this like equity piece? Like amplifying HBCUs is great, but like how far are you willing to go to change your own processes and systems to like truly do the work to bring more folks, more graduates from HBCUs, more HBCU athletes into your organizations, either as players, employees. I guess they're all employees, but like that's, you know, if we start talking about where the work is, that's where the work is to me.
Yeah. Yep. I totally agree. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But in the meantime, it's great. It's great that HBCUs are having this moment through the NBA. You know, when prior to COVID, when there would be those games where the big Power Five school would play an HBCU, and the big thing would be about the exposure piece. And you know, exposure is great, but how are you leveraging? How can HBCUs leverage that? And so I have a similar question for this particular moment: is the exposure is great, but what's next? What's the strategic plan to like truly use it to jump to the next level of whatever you're trying to do is? And so, you know, I'm hopeful that HBCUs are planning around that. You know, it's kind of the same. It's kind of the same thing with like with Deion Sanders coaching at Jackson State. Like that's a great opportunity, but like, what's the plan? Like for then what?
Right.
Like if this is a one-off, then will it have been sufficiently leveraged?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm hopeful that with regard to the NBA, that a part of its commitment, its seemingly renewed commitment to HBCUs really does involve them doing the work around what equitable inclusion of HBCU grads in their organizations, what that might look like. Yeah, so this Team LeBron and Team KD, they had they selected their players the other day, and you're gonna please forgive me because I can't tell you. I can guess at LeBron's starting five. Uh, uh, LeBron, Giannis, is Jokic.
I'm like
Steph and one more. Yeah, I can't tell you. And I only know those because I saw the clip of Giannis being told like he wasn't aware that he was like first drafted on the squad number one. He didn't know what the was. But the most memorable part of the whole clip was the fact that Giannis was unabashedly gnawing on a chicken wing while
That's great.
Literally, like the tip is like hanging, like he's like got the legit chicken wing, like with the tip,
like
And he's
Like,
like,
okay.
really? That's the team? Wow, that's great. That's you know, and but he's just killing this chicken wing. So that's that was the most memorable part, and that's why I can't tell you who all is starting with him because I was so enthralled by his management of the chicken wing. So
Of the chicken wing. That's
yeah,
fair. That's fair. And clearly, I I know what I know. Kawhi is on Team Durant, and that's
clearly you know that.
yeah.
That's
So
yeah,
I'm no help either.
yeah. I can't tell you who's on KD's team. And I should have. I meant to look this up. But there's a rule. Is it like there's a rule in the 24th? Oh Lord. There's a rule in the fourth quarter. Is it that, and I'm goodness, I may have this wrong. I may have to look this up while we talk about it. Is it like at the beginning of the fourth, whichever team has the most points, they add 24 points to that. And like it's a race to the finish to get to that number. The team that gets to that number wins the game. And
That sounds
24,
right.
24 as homage to Kobe.
Right. Right. That's what I recall.
Okay.
Well, I do remember that they were planning to do something related to Kobe in the fourth. I hadn't read too much about what it was because I might be getting I might be now confusing because everything runs together
Oh, it so runs together. It
these
so runs
days.
together. Oh, yeah. No, it's
Like,
fine.
did they do this before for something else? But I don't remember now what it was. So, yes, yes, that is what they're doing.
So, that's an interesting take.
Yeah.
And it feels like, my goodness, like that last year's All-Star game was in Chicago, which as I recall was like a pretty cool, like it was the first All-Star game in a while that I actually like engaged and watched. But that feels
Mhm.
like that was not last year. But I guess it would have been February of
I
2020
know. I know. That's why I'm
before.
like, did they do this a similar format before? And so, okay, so then I am right. That's what I'm thinking about then,
Mhm,
because the All
mhm,
Star
yeah.
game last year would have been before.
Before just a few weeks before everything
Yeah.
collapsed. So
Yep.
yeah, they did it before. Yeah. So um I mentioned Kobe and I unrelated to All-Star game. What are your thoughts around the logo being changed from Jerry West silhouette to Kobe's?
So it's like there's so many. I kind of go back and forth with it
Hmm.
because while I acknowledge um, that Kobe was a great player, one of the greatest of his time, and the impact he had on the game, I start thinking about other players as well. Well, just is that I guess maybe more so is that the right tribute in essence to him? And I haven't quite landed on a yes or no.
Hmm.
I just go back and forth. Um, so I guess the short answer is I don't really have an answer
And
because
that's
I
an
have
answer.
feelings on both sides right now,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
maybe that's the answer.
Yeah, no, and I mean it's a timely question just because the ever mercurial Kyrie has raised has raised it just in the last few weeks. Um, but my only question around it is I may be indifferent about it, but my question is if Kobe hadn't been so tragically and unexpectedly killed, would we be asking this question?
Right.
Uh, and so, that's my only that's the only kind of question I have is like, why now? If it's only because Kobe just died and you want to find a way to tribute him, this could be one way, but there are also other ways that you could show tribute.
Yeah.
So, uh, do I think that it's time to have a conversation around the silhouette changing? Probably. Uh, but yeah, I my sense is that perhaps Kobe is the focus of, being the next man up on that because of his passing.
Mhm.
Uh, so, but I guess we'll see. We
Yeah.
shall see.
Yeah.
Uh,
It's still crazy to believe that it's been a year since that happened, but I guess it's crazy to think in a lot of ways we're coming up on a year of, marking time for a lot of I remember wins, but yeah.
it, yeah, it's
Or I
yeah.
know
I
where I
mean,
was when.
hmm hmm uh, it is crazy to think that we've been in this for a year. Uh, uh, and in some ways, like it felt like it flew by. In other ways, like it felt like it was just dragging. You know.
Mhm.
Remember like how long last March felt?
Oh my gosh.
Like it was
It
like
was like a year and a month.
in 31 days. Yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
yes. Yeah.
yeah.
But I guess just from all the different just recognizing we're now what March 7th and it's like I always since we were so close, I don't like to, to bring it up. But
You
it's
see
like
what I
we
mean?
were
I
on
start like
the
shaking because I know where you're going.
like we were coming up, a few weeks away from the March Madness. I know. I'm sorry. And then, but then this week with certain days marks time when, when we were having the NBA games and they started canceling or canceled those
Yep,
games at night
yep,
and the NBA suspended the season. So
yep.
those conversations, like the end of last week and this weekend have started to
It
come up
started
and
coming up. Yeah,
just
yeah,
refreshing my memory as to we're close to where like the world shut down, just a few
sure,
days removed from that.
sure.
But specifically with the NBA being, I guess, the first
hmm
major professional sports to just like, okay, we're done. Let's
So, yeah,
bring
I
this
mean
to a right. Yeah.
that's a great point. So that um, abrupt ending to the sports world, if you will, started on the night of March 11th last year. So we are 4 days away from that 1 year anniversary, and
Yeah.
the NCAA. Well, no, I don't know that we were even in. I don't think we were in NCAA action. We were in conference tourney week,
Right.
right?
Right.
And the next day, and the SEC tournament, I think, started that Wednesday. But
Mm-hmm.
the next day, like they shut down that tourney like mid game, I think. I think.
I think so
And
too.
then the rest was history. Like
And
everybody
then
else.
yeah, it was like
And then,
everything else was just
we started getting notifications about ticket refunds and whatnot.
yeah, that oh yeah. That's why I say I didn't
But
want to bring it up. But with
I
every
remember
yeah,
being so hopeful, like, girl, they gonna find a way to work this out for our good. Like, we're gonna go to this.
right.
And then I was like, nah, y'all not doing this.
Like, no, we're not going.
Oh.
Nope, not going. Not going.
So
But
I'm still claiming that we have a Final Four championship in our futures.
we do. It's just a matter of what city and which year, but we will be at a Final Four.
I kind of feel like Atlanta should get another shot at the apple. I mean, I know that's complete bias and wishful thinking on my part, but I mean, they got the raw end of the deal. Like, the tournament that they actually bid for and pursued and got, they don't get to move forward with because of COVID. And the All-Star game, they actually want no part of. Like,
Right. But here it is.
yeah.
It's coming anyway.
So, got to get Atlanta a break. Y'all are killing it. Like, y'all are catching it, man, for real, for real.
Oh, goodness.
And I saw that there were like maybe 45 unsanctioned parties going on, and that the NBA had been issuing cease and desist letters to party promoters. Did you see that? And I'm like,
Yeah, I did.
all you can tell them to do is cease and desist using your your intellectual property. Like you're
Right.
not, you can't, you don't have the authority to tell them to cease and desist from having their event. You do have the authority to tell them to cease and desist from suggesting that their event is connected to or sanctioned by the NBA. But I don't know. I just thought it was a little inauthentic and disingenuous. Like, why bother? Like, you knew these parties were going to happen.
Right. Like we
You knew the
talked
parties were
about
going to
that.
happen. And like you're telling them to take, Jerry West off their party flyer doesn't really move the needle. I mean, if you didn't want them having parties, you shouldn't have brought the All-Star game to Atlanta. Like that should have been
Basically.
the cease and desist. But once you decided to do it, you had to know this would happen, and it does not make you a better corporate, citizen that you sent the cease and desist letters. True good corporate
Yeah, the parties
citizenship in
will
this
go
climate.
on. Right. Just
Yeah, yeah, because people were traveling. People
yeah,
were traveling
yeah.
to Atlanta. Well, first of all, they never stopped traveling, but to the extent they were coming for this weekend because of the parties, folks really don't care whether they're NBA sanctioned or not. They're parties, and
Doesn't
I
matter
don't.
if NBA anything was on that flyer.
And I do think that the NBA exercises enough control over its employees that those who are over there thinking they're going to meet a celebrity, I'm not sure those celebrities will be NBA players. Like, I don't know that. I mean, especially after Lemon Pepper Lou's unfortunate situation during the last season, and that little trip to Atlanta. Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't think NBA players are going to be out and about like that. Now, other celebrity athletes, I probably, yeah, but it won't be the NBA crowd because they're
Yeah.
still very
And
much in season.
right. And I think a lot of them anyway, especially LeBron was very vocal about not playing, you
Didn't
know,
want to do it.
for
Didn't want to
reasons
do
we
it.
talked about for, the
Yeah,
rest and it's COVID,
yeah,
you know, and a few other reasons. But yeah, I hear you. I agree. It's the who else outside of current NBA players who will be there. Yeah, I mean that was the thing with Adam Silver when he was talking about stay home, watch the game. That there will be no NBA sanctioned. Okay, but it's still Atlanta, and there's still whoever else will be here or who's already here, celebrity wise. That's the draw. The game is just something that's going to bring people here, more people, because and people are tired of being home,
they
and we
are.
have very lax restrictions for COVID. So yeah, that doesn't surprise me, the number of parties. But taking the NBA sanction, okay, that's it's not stopping
I mean,
anything.
commish, if that helps you feel better, go for it. But it was really not going to
Yeah.
stop these parties from getting off. And so,
I don't know.
I've said it on the page. I'll say it here on this podcast. We need all of our AT aliens to be safe out there. So if that means hunkering down this weekend, then yeah, need you to do that.
Yes, and this
So
one did.
I figured as much, friend. Uh, March Madness. Speaking of coming up on a year and things that typically happen in March, like we're moving forward with March Madness this year. All going to take place on the men's side in Indianapolis,
Hmm.
and I think on the women's side, all taking place in San Antonio, somewhere in Texas. I'm pretty sure it's San Antonio. Um, none. Well, I won't say none. Teams that have historically been a given to be in the tournament and to go deep into the tournament. There are questions around whether they will even make the tourney. And by teams, I mean like UNC and Duke.
Still both unranked. Is that
Still,
correct?
still both like majorly unranked. Duke,
Yeah.
I mean, UNC did beat Duke last night for what it's worth. Uh, um, there are some projections that Duke may, Duke may be one of those like 4 play-in teams.
Oh, wow.
It's just go ahead and send me to NIT. Just send me
Oh,
to NIT. Like,
seriously?
don't even.
Oh,
So,
gosh.
and some projections have UNC like in 10th, but nah, I mean, neither one of them's doing particularly well. But this is the opportunity for the Villanovas, the Gonzagas, the Baylors, Michigan, Ohio
Mhm.
State. I'm just trying to rattle off, some of the top 10 teams. Alabama,
Mhm.
um, and ACC doesn't, isn't in the top 10 rankings. There's not an ACC team in the top 10 rankings. The first ACC team in the rankings is Florida State at 11. I mean, can
That's
you
unreal.
imagine? Can you like, yeah, like that just shows you where we are as a world right now.
That
Like
is so
both.
unreal.
I mean, we've had seasons where Duke, had an off season. We've had seasons, obviously, where my squad has had an off, but for them to be not only bad, but like historically so. And, the same has kind of been going on with Kentucky. I
Mhm.
mean, all these, historically successful and well-regarded programs, just like, I don't, and who knows how much of that is connected to COVID, right? Like,
That's true. Yeah. No, that's a good point too.
uh, you
Uh,
know, I, I don't know. I know how hard it's been for me to stay focused on things. Uh, and for me, the things I do don't involve like physical activity. So I can only imagine what it's like for those young men and the pressure, the travel. It's just a lot. The restrictions on their lifestyles. Like I just
mhm.
can't imagine. I mean that any kind of basketball season has gotten off on any level is kind of a miracle.
Yeah, that's true. Like, I don't know what it would be like to be on campus, just alone, just trying to get the studying done and participating in any type of athletics and trying to maintain your competitive level, while all of this going on with having the extra thoughts in the back of your mind. Like, I fortunately, or at least though, they have whatever parameters for them to try and maintain some level of safety through all of this, but to still be able to show up and want to participate and see it through, speaks a lot, just with all the other distractions going on. So yeah, this is a materially different season. So what I hear you saying is that even if Duke or UNC make it through the play-in, I don't have to worry about them being a Cinderella. that's, that's
No,
what I hear.
I know.
Because Duke historically has ruined my bracket. If I don't select them to win, then
No,
here,
I
here they
mean,
go. And then if
I
I
mean,
do, they're
uh,
out before the 16. So this one I don't have to really.
consult with Lamar, but nah, I wouldn't have Duke going that deep. And let me be clear,
So
I
don't
wouldn't
even
have
select Duke in the play in.
I would I wouldn't have UNC going that deep. So like it's a mess all around.
Oh,
But you bring up a good point
well,
about like
yeah.
the players having all these things on their minds, and there've been just a few things that have popped up on the news, and we've been sharing them on the page, just little indicators of the environment that players are, football and basketball players at the collegiate level are having to kind of live in and like manage. Just this week, the coach at Creighton, Coach McDermott, making an impassioned plea for players to stay on the plantation as a part of a rallying cry, I guess, to get them to play in a more motivated or aggressive way. Uh,
Mhm.
he's been suspended. Um, And so, there's that. There are the boosters at Texas who are insistent on, I don't know if we want to call it a fight song, but a song called "The Eyes of Texas" that's grounded in minstrelsy and Confederate themes. That's played at every Texas football game. Black players have voiced concerns about it and don't want to have to sing it or be on the field while it's being sung by others. And boosters are threatening to take away like their
Mhm.
nice checks, and to kind of insist that these young Black men subject themselves to this. And so the student athletes find themselves in that climate too,
Yeah.
and figuring out how to
Yeah.
navigate it. And as I understand it, with regard to Texas, like Sarkeesian has at least preliminarily stated, oh yeah, the players will sing the song. So perhaps
Wow.
there's a teachable moment or opportunity coming down the pike for Sark, because maybe
Mm.
he doesn't understand, maybe he doesn't quite understand why the players feel the way they do. So yeah, just good luck to all the players, going through that are going to be participating in March Madness in some way. I know that one of our favorite athletes, Dawn Staley, head coach of the South Carolina women's Gamecocks. She is
Yes.
actually, and I'm looking it up right now because I want to be sure to get the other uh, coach's name right. She's playing in the SEC women's tourney against another Black woman coach, uh, which has to be a first time for that. Like I can't think of another
Yeah,
occasion.
I'm sure.
Uh, I can't think of another occasion on which that's happened. Um, is it Joni or Johnny Taylor? Johnny, Johnny,
I tell
Johnny,
you, Johnny. And I was going to say
Johnny.
while you were looking it up, you've been uh, sharing some really fascinating and interesting either historical um, events for Black women that have gone unnoticed and off the radar, and even some current. So to your point, like we're still in this moment of first. So I'm
Yeah,
sure it is a first, which is just like
it
as
says
much
so
as we
much.
have accomplished, yeah, it just says like we're still having these firsts in sports, but it's just so yeah, I don't doubt that it is,
It's
but
the first. I don't have to look it up. It's the first. Like I
yeah.
just in my bones, I know that's the case. And yeah, I mean, you're right. The fact that we're still having to acknowledge these first. And I saw a little chirping on, I don't know which sports site's Facebook page, but about the first Black female NFL referee.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was something we posted on the page. And like, somebody went into the whole, why is this even news? Like da 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 da. And it's news because the league is 101 years old.
Right. Right. Like just let that sit for a
Just like
second.
like just let that sizzle in your spirit. As Country Wayne says, just let that sizzle in your spirit. Like the league is
Right.
100 years old. The league had its first Black coach actually in its first year, Fritz Pollard. And then it was a smooth. Oh, my math is hard, can be horrible. It was a smooth 60 or so years before they had another coach of color. There are currently, I can't tell you how many Black coaches there are in the NFL right now.
Yeah.
Very few, very few.
Head coaches
Head
we know,
coaches,
but yeah, it
yeah,
gets once you get
yeah.
into all the assistants and positions, yeah.
But yeah,
A
so
few.
a first Black woman referee is a big deal. Again,
Yeah.
101 years. So that's why it's important. Like that, it took that long. It should
Mhm.
not be, but it absolutely is, and will continue to be. I mean, that's just how this country's kind of set up, you know. Um, and oh, I'm not going to say that. I'll just keep that little in my pocket.
Okay, just hold it when we
Mhm. I'm
just
gonna come back to it.
okay.
But you offer kind of a perfect segue for someone that, to your point around some of the Black women who've been highlighted over the course of, these first few days of Women's History Month. I wanted to talk a little bit about Wyomia Tyus because I know a
Oh,
number of
please
our
do.
I know a number of our followers on Facebook. It was their first time learning of her, or knowing her about her accomplishments. And she comes out of this tradition of like dominant track and field programs at HBCUs, right? And back in the day, you had like Tuskegee Institute, FAMU,
Mm-hmm.
Tennessee State University, Fort Valley State University, all like cultivated starting in like the 30s and 40s, these very strong women's track and field programs. At a time too, like HBCUs actually admitted high school students. So you could complete your high school degree, and then if you so chose, to apply and matriculate, continue on at that same institution. And if I'm not mistaken, that's what Wyomia Tyus did, although she was from Georgia. Uh, and she was coached by the venerable Ed Temple, as was Wilma Rudolph. So she comes
Mm-hmm.
from this strong tradition. So she had to perform and produce because she came from a line of producers, Um, and so she's, she's perhaps the first American to like successfully defend their gold medal at the Olympics. So she won the 100 meter in Tokyo in '64 unexpectedly. Her fellow Tiger Belle, Edith McGuire, was actually expected to win it. And then so she goes to Mexico City in '68. That's almost a tongue twister.
Right.
To defend it. Mexico City in '68. To defend it and successfully defends it there. But that also happens in the backdrop of the iconic moment with
Right.
Tommie. And because their names sound like first and last names, like I always Tommie Smith and John Carlos.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
and,
Yes.
and and Peter Norman, the Australian who was the ally on that platform with them. The backstory on that is that she and the other Tiger Bell track and field members and other Black women collegiate athletes at the time were sort of included in the conversations that Harry Edwards Olympic Project for Human Rights was having around the prospect of protesting the '68 games.
Mm-hmm.
They wanted known racist Avery Brundage ousted as chair of the Olympics. They wanted Blacks on the USOC committee, or rather the USOC, and they wanted to. They were making those types of demands, and if those demands weren't met, they were encouraging these athletes to protest and boycott the Olympics. But ultimately they ended up leaving it to individual athletes to decide what they wanted to do. Most of them did go.
Right.
The most notable one who didn't was Lou Alcindor, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
Right.
But those conversations that were being had by the Olympic Project for Human Rights didn't really notify the women athletes that those conversations were having, but weren't equitably inclusive of them.
Mm-hmm.
And their charge, the organizations or the group's charge, was really around seeking equity specifically for like Black men first, and
Yeah.
then right. So what voice could Black women have had in that space? But nonetheless, and Coach Temple encouraged his, depending on how you want to frame it, encouraged his players, his athletes, to participate in the Olympics, and discouraged them, because he did both, encouraged their participation and discouraged them engaging in political discourse. Like they should be respectable young ladies, and that line. So Tyus goes. She's a very quiet person, keeps to herself. But when Tommie Smith and John Carlos, win the medals, are on the platform, give the signal, or donning black socks or whatever, and get ousted from the Olympic Village, are told to go home,
Mm-hmm.
like are kicked off, no longer competing. She has a relay race the next day, and in a form of protest and support of them, she dons black shorts. She wins the race, but dons black shorts, which weren't a uniform, like which weren't standard issue for the team. So that was, and she made clear in the presser after her win, like this, this is for them. But we don't talk about
Right.
Wyomia Tyus and our form of protest at the '68 Olympics. And it's no wonder that even like folks like us who consider ourselves like sports fans and who kind of know about Black athletes throughout American history, like she's very much an unsung hero in that space. And she was really the first Black track and field star, woman Black track and field star, to be able to go on and compete professionally. Usually like the Alice Coachmans, who was the first Black woman to win an Olympic gold medal at the London Olympics in '48. Like they competed collegiately and then had to go find jobs that
Mm-hmm.
outside, that was when they ceased participating in sports. Well, Wyomia Tyus has the benefit of coming up in the time and coming of age and reaching like employability age at a time like the women's movement is starting to bubble up in the '70s, right? And so
Right.
with it, opportunities for women increase. And one of the areas in which they increased was in track and field with the creation of the International Track Association. So she competed in that organization for the 3 years it existed and, kicked butt and took names there and like amassed all these records, some of which weren't broken for, decades after she set them. So that's my very brief yet long-winded ode to Wyomia Thomas. And let's try to do this more, right? Let's try to, because of our mission and our charge with what we're doing here, like let's have that conversation more around uh, unsung Black women athletes.
Yeah. Now I have the history lesson and all of that and the education because it's an important point. One off of Black History Month, with us being in Women's History Month, and knowing that we are as Black women achieve all of these first. And one thing that you said, well, there was many things, but one thing that I
Said a lot of things.
no, but it was all interesting though, because in an article when you posted, I was like, how have I one heard of this woman? Just name alone. So that off the top, but then know the story. So it is important to put that information out there that we were still in this time, like we talk about being the double minority.
Mm-hmm.
What she did, as subtle as it was, with just not wearing it was still a push in the movement. And so it took me to fast forward to how we've talked about specifically with women athletes, but WNBA players. We've seen the women's soccer really be like pushing the forefront of the social justice. It's not the men, it's the women. Are really in mind as to being on their shoulders and advancing the social justice movement. However, the protest looks, be it as subtle as the attire that we're wearing, or we're having support of a politician, to everything in between and even beyond from a verbal standpoint. So that's kind of what it was like, I guess at that time, what I equate to the shut up and dribble, but the kind of shut up and run, in essence, like be this woman and go out there and do this thing that you are here to do, which is to run this race, but be cute and pretty and do that. And don't,
right.
That's
be respectable, right? Like it,
right.
to be respectable. And she is, we stand on her shoulders, and she's still alive. So we should absolutely be giving her her flowers while she can sniff and enjoy them.
Exactly.
Uh,
Yeah.
so yeah, we'll make it a concerted effort to share more info like that. A good primary source for her and a handful of other Black women athletes is Jennifer Lansbury's A Spectacular Leap. And
Okay.
so you get pretty thorough biographical sketches about her, about Wilma Rudolph, about Oral Washington, about FloJo, and Jackie Joyner Kersey. So yeah, I mean there's some good source material out there, but it's few and far between, and you have to know where to look. But
Hmm.
yeah, no, she's Wyomia Tyus is the woman, and we should talk about her more for sure. Friend, we're coming up on the hour. You have anything uh you feel like we've missed or need to cover? Uh
No, I tell you, she's a great way to really kind of close out just all the celebration of this good Black girl magic that has been out there. That yes, keep doing and pushing with all these firsts, because we know where we are marking these first, there more to come. So to me, that's an excellent way to really to close us out and to end.
Great. Well, that's just what we're going to do. Good people, we want to thank you guys for joining us on this ride yet again. We will be back in 2 weeks, and we should be in the middle of March Madness by then. In fact, I think that Selection Sunday is next Sunday.
Yeah.
So, and I suppose we'll be doing for what it's worth, we'll be doing some type of bracketology uh, on our side of the house. So be on the lookout for that. We appreciate you all. Continue to rock with us. Check us out. We primarily get down on Facebook, but we're also on Twitter and Instagram, all at just Black Girls Vibe. And on Facebook, it's Black Girls Vibe Tribe. So we will see you guys in 2 weeks. And in the meantime, stay safe and have a good one.
See ya.